Hello, my name is Elliot Paz. I am a teaching assistant at Montana State University Northern, and for today's lecture, we'll be going over Chapter 3, Public Health Data and Communications, out of the book Public Health 101, Improving Community Health, by Richard Riegelman and Brenda Kirkwood. And what we're going to be going over this chapter is identifying the 7 basic sources of public health data, identifying 2 population health status measures of mortality, explain the meaning, use, and limitations of infant mortality rate and life expectancy measurements, explain the meanings of using Hales and Dailies, and identifying criteria for evaluating the quality of information presented on the internet, ideally effective ways to display public health information, explain the meaning and ways to address incomplete information, misinformation, and disinformation, explain ways that perceptions affect how people interpret information, explain the roles of probabilities, utilities, and the timing of events in combining public health data, explain the principles for the construction decision trees and their uses. Finally, we're going to see how attitudes such as risk-taking attitudes may affect decision-making, and identify 3 different approaches to clinical decision-making and their advantages and disadvantages. All right, so to start off our lecture, what is the scope of health communications? Well, when we're talking about health communications, we're talking about methods for collecting, compiling, and presenting health information. So now that we're going further in depth on the scope, when we're talking about collecting health data, we're pulling it from various sources. We're compiling that information into an understandable and actionable format, and then presenting the information effectively to individuals, healthcare providers, and communities. So in short, when we're talking about health communication, it is essentially all about information, from its collection, to how it's processed and understood, to how it's ultimately used to inform decisions about health and wellness. All right, and now what I have here is figure 3.1 showing public health data. Here, this illustrates how different elements of public health data and health communication are interconnected, forming a continuous flow of information. So now health communication has evolved rapidly alongside the rise of the internet. However, this growth has also led to increased challenges with incomplete information, misinformation, and disinformation. Hereby understanding the difference between these terms and knowing how to address each one is crucial for public health communication. Now starting with the stages of flow of information, starting with such as collecting data. Where does public health data come from? And these sources can include surveys, health records, research studies, and community reports. Then for the next step of compiling information, how is public health information organized and compiled to assess the health of its population? Note this step involves aggregating data to analyze trends, disparities, and health outcomes. Then we have presenting the information. How do we evaluate the quality of public health information when it is presented? And note the clarity, accuracy, and accessibility of health data are essential to ensure it's understood by diverse audiences. Then for perceiving the information, what factors influence how we perceive public health information? Personal beliefs, social influences, media portrayal, and emotional responses can all shape how people interpret health messages. Then you also have the combining the information. So what information needs to be combined for effective health decision making? Public health decisions often require integrating data from various sources, such as epidemiological research, behavioral science, and social economic factors. Then finally, we have our decision making. How do we use the information to make informed health decisions? And note this step also involves applying the compiled data to make actionable policies, health interventions, or personal health decisions. All right, now that we're talking about public health data, where does it come from? Here, this data is collected through public health surveillance and is typically done in a way that ensures individual privacy is protected. So this means the data is published and distributed without identifying specific individuals. Now, public health data comes from an increasingly wide range of sources. These sources are often combined to create integrated health data systems or databases. While these integrated databases are highly beneficial, since they're great for compiling information which can help to describe problems, examine causes, and assist with evidence-based recommendations, There is also a concern about the privacy of sensitive health information. With the increased ability to access and combine data, it's important to protect the privacy and confidentiality of an individual's health information to avoid potential misuse or breaches. All right, now what I have here is table 3.1, which is going to be showing the sources of public health surveillance data. So, as we mentioned previously, public health data is gathered through various surveillance methods to provide a comprehensive picture of the health status of populations. The seven S's represent the key quantitative sources of this data, each offering unique insights into health trends and risks. Starting off, we have single case or small series. Here, this refers to the collection of data from individual cases or small groups to identify unusual health events, outbreaks, or patterns that may signal emerging health threats. Then we have statistics on reportable diseases, which public health agencies routinely collect data on reportable diseases, say infectious diseases, and other key health statistics to monitor the frequency and spread of specific conditions across populations. Our next S is surveys, which are widely used to collect self-reported health information from large groups of people. These may include national health surveys, behavioral risk factor surveys, and disease-specific questionnaires. Then you have self-reporting. This method relies on individuals reporting their own health conditions, behaviors, or experiences, such as through health apps, disease registries, or health screenings. Now, it's often used for tracking non-communicable diseases or lifestyle factors. Then we have sentinel monitoring. This involves a selected sample, aka the sentinel sites or groups of individuals, institutions, or communities that represent a larger population, providing early signals about health trends or outbreaks. Then next up we have syndromic surveillance, which this method tracks syndromes or symptom patterns, such as flu-like symptoms, rather than a confirmed diagnosis. Here it's useful for detecting early signs of outbreaks or unusual health events. Finally, we have social media. Since increasingly, public health organizations use social media data to monitor and assess public health trends, public concerns, and emerging issues. Platforms like Twitter or Facebook can provide real-time information on disease outbreaks, mental health trends, or health behaviors. So in short, these seven S's of public health surveillance help collect, monitor, and analyze data to track the health of populations, detect emerging issues, and inform public health interventions.